Again, this is a continuation of the Sermon on the Mount, which we just heard at a Sunday Mass just a few weeks ago, just before Lent began. And I was pondering over this. Jesus, throughout this part of the Sermon on the Mount, is saying, you have to go deeper. Where you thought you were good is not good enough. You have to be looking towards the heart. You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This is impossible stuff here, which means we, of course, need Almighty God for the help of this. But I think part of the problem, beyond our natural human nature and inclination to sin and all that stuff, is that we've fallen so easily into line with the culture. We've fallen so easily into line with the culture, and we forget we're called to greater. We're called to greater. I think about probably the turn of the last century when Catholics were persecuted in the United States. You couldn't get a job necessarily, signs that say Irish need not apply, Catholics need not apply, things like that. And at that time, to be Catholic wasn't to be part of the mainstream Protestant WASP culture in America. And so it was difficult. And they knew at that time, okay, we're separate. We've forgotten that. We got involved in the culture, probably, I don't know if my history is right, sometime after World War II, as people were coming back, we got middle class and all this stuff, and we got eased into the culture with everyone else, and we've forgotten we can't be like everybody else. We have to be greater. Jesus is calling us deeper, greater, not just to do what everybody else does. Don't love your neighbors and hate your enemies, but love even your enemies. This great call, this deep call, this call to holiness that God has for each one of us. And when we go along just with the culture and, we're doing everything that everybody else does, we lose sight of the fact that we're God's children. We're not children of the world. We are God's children. St. John says this in his first letter. We are God's children now. What we shall later be has not yet been revealed. So we need to ask God for that grace to see all those areas where we have conformed to the culture. Asking God for that help to go beyond just our natural inclination towards the supernatural inclination, to be open to His grace pouring into us so that we can do the impossible things of loving even our enemies.